Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. And that's centered though. Here we go. This is better. As you can tell, I don't like this. See, look at me. I don't like this cord hanging down. As you can tell, I just run from upstairs down to my studio with like so very little prep. This is very much fly by the seat of your pants. I don't got my little anarchy necklace out. Got it. Got to be sporting, right? Got to be sporting the anarchy. All right, here we go. Now I'm ready. I just came from taking a nap and working on Lpedia and working on campaign stuff because my re-election campaign is going to be occupying the vast majority of my time. The two members of my graphics team have come up with some really nice graphics that I'm ordering for conventions for next year. So before we get started on wrapping up what I have left to cover for the LP Time Capsule for November, December 1973. Now, we still have some more 1973 stuff to cover, but for those of you who don't know, the way these shows are organized is they're organized around issues of LP News. That doesn't mean we won't cover other things that are kind of out of order. Today, I just got in the mail, I think it's a 1973 issue of Reason magazine, and we'll be going through some of that as well. But these are articles and things that were directly mentioned in the particular issue of LP News we had been going over. So that's kind of how it's organized, though it's not strictly organized in that way. And thank God I am getting health insurance starting January 1st because I've got an abscess. Isn't that nice? So that's one reason why I haven't been feeling that well. Having, gum issues can really affect the rest of your body. And here is some more good news. yesterday I'd let you know that I was $12 a month away in patrons to make my 2021 Patreon goal. I got a $5 a month patron yesterday, which I need to send out my thank you card. So we're down to $7 a month, and you can make my year in patron pledges. So if you can do that, I would greatly appreciate it at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. Otherwise, super chats all matter, and any super chats go to my campaign fund, my re-election, reinstatement, vindication, Reno reset, whatever you would like to call it, fund. And today I ordered my sample of the Don't Steal My Hair shirt. So I'll be wearing that in the future, so you guys can check out the merch at tinyurl.com/Pink Flame merch. And that's it for the grifting for today. Without further ado, we are going to get right to wrapping up the loose ends. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to cover that gem of an email from the Whitney Bill U hypocritical email vault. And whatever else I feel like covering. I'm not so sure what we're going to do on New Year's Eve. I'd love to hear suggestions. Okay, I need to do it so that like my monitor is up here, like from the ceiling. Eventually, this whole studio will... You guys who have been with me for a couple years know that my studio's gotten better and better. But eventually, I want to mount the monitor because right now, the monitor where I use to read text is over here. So you keep seeing me looking here. And comments are over here. And my camera is right there. But for right now, we are going to be pulling up the news articles. These, and thank you very much, Fidalgo Files, for the super chat. Oh, and what have you missed? Well, before we pull up the files, you've missed quite a bit. We've covered Delaware in depth. There have been 2 appeals filed by the 2 various groups in Delaware, and a just disgustingly nasty email sent by our party chair to a member who dared question Her Highness. Okay, and I got a campaign manager. I think that's been within the past 16 days. D.L. Cummings, the wonderful Libertarian dad from Florida. Okay, so let's pull up the first thing. I want to see if I can make it large enough so that you can see it. I can. All right, so these are news articles, and let's pull up the first one. No, that's Whitney's rude email. Rude letter. We don't want that. What we want is this. You should be seeing, hold on, it's not showing me what you're seeing. You guys tell me in chat if you, one second, are you seeing a newspaper article? Let me know that is entitled Panel Recommends Changes in Election Laws, because for some reason it's not showing me my little preview. So until I hear otherwise, I'm going to assume you see this. Now, more Delaware. Yes, Fidalgo. So let me know. I'm waiting to hear in chat. Oh, okay, I see my little preview now. It finally came up. Great. Perfect. And I've got like these wires in front of everything. I need to order some larger XLR cables, but maybe I'll do that tonight because I got paid yesterday. So a lot was going on in the 70s, and actually something we're going to be covering in a couple years. Not necessarily a couple years our time, but a couple years in the 70s, where they really changed. It was after the Watergate convictions. They really changed campaign finance law that screwed over third parties. I think that it would have been very difficult for the LP to start and get to where it's at, where if we were formed after that big change. Because it's just very discouraging. Now, we haven't been there yet, but right now, this is kind of a supplement to the D. Frank Robinson show I did about 3 weeks ago, where he talked about his, the plans he had in the 70s. So this is from the Daily Oklahoman, November 10th, 73. And if you remember D. Frank Robinson, who is mentioned in this article in that third column there, lived in Oklahoma. He was the chair of Oklahoma at the time. So it says, introduction of legislation to reform the state's absentee voting, campaign financing, registration laws was recommended Friday by a legislative council committee. And we're just going to skip ahead to see what it is that they had wanted to do. I don't know how good this gets into it because I just pulled up these articles to show you things that were going on, but I hadn't really examined them. It says many of the changes proposed, we're on the second column towards the bottom. Many of the procedural changes proposed will make it possible to change procedures with the times, whereas they have been written rigidly into the law in the past. A law making it mandatory for election officials to use sealing wax is the most recent example. Most used example. Well, I would agree that's probably old-fashioned-y. Says the recommendations will be incorporated into a report to be presented Thursday to the Executive Committee of the State Legislative Council. Howard said. D. Frank Robinson, Oklahoma National Executive Committeeman for the Libertarian Party, appeared to oppose some of the provisions in the proposed new code. Provisions of the code dealing with the recognition of political parties, voter registration, the composition of the state election board, and political campaign contributions and expenditures appear to violate the constitutional requirement that no state deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, he said. He proposed a system to base the recognition of political parties on registration figures rather than petitions as provided by the present law in the proposed recodification. Now, D. Frank had some very, very interesting ideas, and he's like super radicalized me when it comes to ballot censorship. Like D. Frank opposes the Australian ballot, which has pre-printed by the state candidate names. He thinks everything should be an all write-in ballot the way it is for overseas ballots, and we seem to handle those just fine. And he's converted me to that particular point of view. But let's continue now. So I think we have another article that might say the same thing. So let me pull it up because, again, I just do this newspapers.com research, and sometimes the same article gets reprinted several times. Okay, no, this one, let me pull this up once I can make it large enough for you guys. I don't know if this is going to be large enough for you guys to see it, but I can always mail copies of these to anyone who would like it, by the way. Let me go here. I'm sorry, it always shows a black screen for a little bit because I have to pull it up. All right. This thing here has to do with the criticism of Ayn Rand that we read. Remember, I had said I was going to try to find where allegedly she took taxpayer-funded trip to go look at a moon launch thing. Apparently, this is it because she's mentioned in this article. So it says the Skylab 2 astronauts aim their powerful telescopes. But I know somewhere in here, Ayn Rand is mentioned as going to view this. We're not going to really read this entire article. Just wanted to give you the historical context of what they were complaining about. That the view of this thing being launched into space, apparently Ayn Rand took taxpayer dollars to get to view this, and people were calling her a hypocrite. I tend to think there's probably a lot of other things to get more upset about. She paid into these taxes as well. If she wanted to go look at a moon launch, I can't say I'm going to get too upset about that. Okay, the next one we are going to pull up here. Libertarians to hold state convention. Again, this is the Daily Oklahoman, August 14th, 1973. I like how these newspapers actually covered our conventions back then. We used to get a lot more news. So it says the Libertarian Party of Oklahoma will hold its second state convention because they were formed in 72 in Oklahoma City, Saturday and Sunday. Ooh, a 2-day one. State Chairman D. Frank Robinson announced on Monday the convention will be held at the Lincoln Plaza Inn. Convention business will include the election of new officers, platform revisions, presentations of initiative petitions, workshops, and county caucuses. It says the party was represented in the 1972 national election by presidential candidate John Hospers, director of the School of Philosophy at the University of California, and Mrs. Tony Nathan, a television producer from Oregon. Robinson said that the party is part of a political movement with a philosophy of less government control over individual, personal, and economic affairs. Our statement of principles, which emphasizes the right of every person to exercise domination over his own person, social relations, and the fruit of his labor, so long as he does not interfere with the same right of others, has a definite place in today's politics, Robinson said. Now remember, 1973, we were still explicitly solely a monarchist party, and Mr. Robinson himself was a monarchist at that time. He was actually a Randian. He has since become an anarcho-capitalist. Okay, let's pull up. Ooh, this one's tiny. I'm not so sure we're going to be able to read this, but oh, that's tiny. But you can see it talks about the campaign financing again. This is a repeat of the article we had already looked at from the Daily Oklahoman. So as you can see, we were getting press. And I think this one too is another one, but it shows a picture of a young D. Frank. Now, if you all know D. Frank, look at him here. Look at that beard. Look at how Rico Suave D. Frank was. But there he is. Let's see what this has to say. It says contributions to political candidates should be made, this is kind of blurry on my end, should be made by the contributor buying vouchers from banks, savings and loan companies, and similar institution. D. Frank Robinson, outgoing chairman of the state Libertarian Party, said Saturday. Such a proposal would conceal the identity of the contributor from everyone, including the candidates, which is a very interesting proposal. He spoke, He spoke to some 25 persons at a convention at the Lincoln Plaza Inn. That's the convention we just read about. The party has some 35 paid members statewide, and it looks like that says 5,000 nationally, Robinson said. The secret contribution vouchers could be printed in denominations corresponding to the denominations of our currency, he said. The voucher would be bought at base value, less a fee for administrative cost. The buyer would indicate on the voucher the candidate or party he wanted to receive his contribution. It would, I can't read what that says, something, the premise, I have no idea what that sentence says. It's very, very blurry here. Periodically, perhaps once a week, the representatives of the candidates or party would meet, open the deposit box, and make its public disposition and accounting for the secret contribution vouchers, Robinson explained. The basic objective is a shift in the incentive of the candidates away from trying to be all things to all voters according to the expediencies of the moment, while at the same time engaging in covert influence peddling and secret favoritism, he said. It would shield the public from political reprisals and shield the candidates from those who would expect favors. The plan would also shield the individual from non-governmental coercion by such groups as unions, Robinson added. This would certainly be an antidote against cancel culture, wouldn't it? What sets the Libertarian Party apart from other parties is that we derive our political philosophy from the belief that no person, no group, or government agency has the right to initiate force or violence against any other person, group, or government, Robinson said. The Libertarian Party is not and has not been on the ballot in Oklahoma. I like how every single interview, he simply repeated our basic principles, which is a good lesson for us to learn today. Okay, let's see this next one. Let's make this big. Norman Mann, elected head of state Libertarian Party. Again, this is all dealing with Oklahoma. This is the man who succeeded after D. Frank Robinson. So let's see if I can see this. It is quite small, but it looks like Thomas Laurent was elected as to head the party next. This is kind of tiny for me So I'm not so sure I can read all of this. I'm trying to just give you the highlights. It just really is giving our basic philosophy, which is good. So these are all check out within just a span of a couple months, the amount of news that the Oklahoma party received. I think that should be an inspiration for us today. Now, all of these articles were mentioned in the LP News, which is why I went looking for them. But here is something D. Frank sent me, and this is really good. Let me pull this up here. Okay, this is a newsletter from the Oklahoma Libertarian Party. We did not have this in the party archives. This was something that D. Frank had in his own archives that he sent me a copy of. And it was called Declare Your Independence. Now, at first, when I read about this in the LP News, I thought this was just a pamphlet called Declare Your Independence. But it is not. It is actually their entire newsletter. Now, one mistake I made is I didn't print this out. And you want to know what? I think tomorrow we are going to go over this whole newsletter. I need to print it out so I can have it in front of me to read it to you guys thoroughly, because look at all this good stuff. And I wanted to keep tonight's show short because I did have some things that I needed to take care of. So we covered the newspaper articles. This thing on the front here, the We Think Freedom is Okay, this is what was specifically mentioned in the LP News. But look at this other stuff. Who is a libertarian? I'd like to read that. Price controls don't work. We've got a secret, a way to end dirty money in politics. I think that will have a lot to do with what D. Frank was just talking about. But in 73, he was already writing a history of the Libertarian Party. And that's really what I want to focus on. And here's a statement of principles prior to the Dallas Accord, some planks from the national platform, comparing it to the Oklahoma platform. So, you know what? Tomorrow, we will probably do those excerpts from the Whitney Bill U hypocrisy files, and we will go over that Declare Your Independence issue, because I think that deserves an episode all of its own. That will be a nice way to round out the year. Maybe I'll do several shows tomorrow. I also need to record my radio show tomorrow. For those of you who do not know, I am on the air in Colorado on Saturday afternoons from 2 to 3 in Weld County, where I do a just entirely hardcore libertarian show. And we've been going over the opening statement of Dr. Ilya Somin in his debate with Angela McArdle. And I get throat punchy, man, when I listen to that guy. Man, was he terrible. So this is probably the shortest show I've done in a long time. It was under a half an hour. But I am going to just see if there are any questions or comments to go over. Have some cognac in chat here. Because you know me, I'll hang out as long as you guys want. But I am pretty busy. I am finishing. Hey, Stephen, you were stuck in a bylaws committee meeting. I love bylaws committee meetings, by the way. Oh, and speaking of committee meetings, so I do have some news for you guys. The National Platform Committee is going to start meeting in January. The deadline for all of the states that received platform committee appointments is tomorrow. Now, states can appoint late, but they will miss some meetings. I am the interim platform committee chair, which is funny because this just shows you the corrupt hypocrisy of the Libertarian National Committee. Remember, Richard's first motion was to remove me not just from my secretarial position, but from all committees because I was so terrible, right? Just the week and a half before, I was voted with way more than a 2/3 vote of the LNC to be interim committee chair of the platform committee. So which is it, Richard? Was I just so terrible that I shouldn't be on any committees? Did that terribleness manifest itself in the week and a half between the vote where you made me chair of the platform committee? What happened in that week and a half? Oh, New Hampshire happened, and no, you guys didn't go after me as a whistleblower. No, there's no evidence for that. Corrupt. But anyway, I am the interim platform committee chair. The platform committee elects its own chair. I will be running again for chair of the platform committee. I do not know if I will be honored again to receive that position. I have served in that role twice before. The platform committee is quite a rambunctious committee and a large committee. There's 20 members plus up to 20 alternates. Average speaking. I think there's 12 alternates this time, and it can get quite rambunctious. You have to have somebody chairing that committee who has a very, who knows how to chair a meeting and has a very strong grasp of Roberts. So it is a committee that I am particularly qualified to chair. And what I find funny is the people who don't like my radical views, who have a hissy fit over me being platform committee chair. And what they don't realize is when I chair meetings, I chair. I don't get involved, with a rare exception, in the ideological disputes. So if you were someone who wanted to try to keep my radical voice from being expressed on the platform committee, you should want me to be chair, because I remain neutral when I'm chair. I protect the sanctity of the chair. But people are just stupid, and they don't think that, and they get all up in their feels. So either way, I win. I enjoy chairing that committee. If I win platform committee chair again, I will be honored. And if I don't, then I get to spread my radicalness all over the place. So either way, it's a win-win for me. All right, guys, that is it for this evening. I will ask once again, I only need $7 a month in Patreon patrons. It's a weird way to subscribers, whatever you want to call it, to make my big yearly goal. If you can do that, it would be greatly appreciated. But I appreciate you guys no matter what. This is not a large channel, but for a small channel, the amount of support I have is incredible. I have such a dedicated watcher base, and I am grateful for all of you. So I hope you have an awesome night, and I will speak with you probably multiple times tomorrow. Love you, mi guapas de libertad.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.